Good follow.
Oh, I would. How else would you hold me accountable?
Good answer.
I have said that I wouldn't take a salary because I think it's very important to have a very qualified professional staff, and I would rather see the salary from the chairperson go to the executive director, go to a political director or a field director, especially going into 2010 elections. We need a communications director, a finance director. So we need, at the state level, a full professional working staff, and the only way we could do it is by taking the chair's salary and giving it off to everyone else.
Thank you. This table. Grant?
Do you really want to know?
Do you have a question for the candidates?
I have a question.
A little louder, please.
Okay. I'm sorry, I forgot your name, sir.
This is Mike Franco.
Michael. Yes. How do you intend on carrying out your ambitions for the Republican Party in this state and according to where there appears to be a shortage in Western Mass?
How do I intend to carry out my responsibilities? You said, well, that's what I laid out in my three-part plan earlier in the presentation.
But is there a step one, step two, and this, I'm going to complete this and then go on to the next stage of the plan?
Well, right away I'm going to start reaching out to people across the state and in the local committees. I'm going to put all the paperwork in front of me and see what committees are formed. I'm going to ask people who the leaders are, people in the know who have been in Republican politics for a long, long time. Bernie's one of those gentlemen. Who is it in your region, Bernie, who I can approach first? Who knows what's going on?
And what Republicans or Democrats do you know in Western Mass, like Springfield, Orange, Brimfield, Sturbridge?
Well, it's not too difficult to know all the Republicans in Western Mass. But I would certainly go to them and talk to them and travel the state and talk to other Republicans and Republican committee leaders and members to see what's going on, to see what's organized, to see what they like and don't like, if they have disappointments. One thing I would avoid is a turf war. I think if we're having
There's a lot of turf war.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think if we're having a discussion or a contest or a fight based on who we are and where we're going to take this party in the future, that's worthy of our time. If it's a turf war,
but you have a lot of loyalty of Republicans out there.
Yeah, if there's hurt feelings or some other problem, who's getting the support, not getting the support, I think we need to fix that very quickly and move on. So there's a lot of work to do, and a lot of it is fundraising as well. So as the leader of the Republican Party of Massachusetts, he or she is going to have to start making those calls immediately. And get a team in place to see where some funding will come from.
I used to do the door knocking. I used to do the cold calls. I know what you're talking about.
Right. Thank you for your question.
One of the things that we have to do is utilize the resources that we have. One of the great resources that we have are our current elected officials and the former elected officials, and reach out to them and ask them to help us to motivate people, to help us to inspire people. We have 16 state reps at the time. I would say most, if not all of them, were reelected by over 60%. In some cases, 66, 67, 68%. These are Republicans. They're conservative Republicans that keep getting reelected at unbelievable percentages. We need to ask them.
Do you know that why? Because they're very small towns, they're very anal, and they stay with what they know and what they know best that works.
Well, I mean, they're all over the place. The state reps that won are all over the place, from Brad Jones to Jeff Perry to Don Humison. I mean, they are in all different quadrants of the state. So, so they do have a more broad view of what their constituencies want, and they know how to run campaigns, and they know how to staff their campaign offices. And those would be great people to start with, because they have some formula that helps them to keep winning. And we need to know that formula in order to help us have more people elected to office.
Mr. Tuzik, you have a question for the candidates?
I think we all know that the Democrats are very good at raising funds. And I want to know, what are your plans for getting out-of-state monies to fund the state committee? Now, the state committee can find a candidate that is attractive to out-of-states. Now, for example, on liberal issues, we know the Democrats apply to Hollywood with very good results. Now, we could find other issues that are more conservative and target money interest across these United States to send money into Massachusetts to elect a Republican candidate favorable to their views. So if it works for the Democrats, why can't it work for us?
Absolutely. Outreach is a very important thing. One of the items I outlined in my strategic plan is to do outreach, to go to neighboring states, to talk with the RNC, and to say just because we're considered one of the bluest of blue states does not mean that you should just forget about us and we should be left behind. There are some great Republicans out there that do have star power that might want to come to Massachusetts. We can get our neighbors. Rhode Island is in a very similar situation as us. New Hampshire just lost their red state status, and to get our forces in our neighboring states and to have a big draw, because it's a regional draw, and we all have the same regional issues, and so to go out, to go to the RNC, ask for help from our national committee people, ask for help from the RNC, target some of those big names, and ask them to come and help us out of where we are.
Most of my time will be spent building this party brick by brick in the field, creating committees. But the fundraising aspect out of state is very important. I'm not closed to that. I'm very open to it, and I think the core values and the principles and issues of the Republican Party is where we can seek our strength and gain our strength. I've had some experience with bringing in some money from out of state on various issues for initiatives that were happening in different regions across the state. So we could do that again. Also, using a candidate, a very strong candidate on certain issues might draw money in from out of state. Earl Shawley ran for Congress in opposition to Barney Frank. He brought in most of his money from out of state because he was very articulate with his issues, and he showed that his candidacy was in direct opposition to Barney Frank with regard to the bailout and all these, the Freddie Mac and the Fannie Mae incidences with Barney Frank. So I think the candidates can help us bring that money in if you find really good, strong candidates, and also the chairman of the party should also be helpful in networking and to get some of that issues-related money into the state Republican Party.
If I may add something to it, Mr. Tuzik. There are an organization as the National Republican Governors Association, there's the National Republican Senatorial Committee and the Congressional Committee. There's also some PACs, let's call them, or special interest groups, like one is called Republicans for Environmental Protection. These groups, they raise money all over the country, then they allocate it to candidates that they feel are, you know, electable. So they do what they call bundling campaigns. That's how they operate. So there is money that comes in from out of state. If, for example, like I said, this Republicans for Environmental Protection is a very good example. They put out like an APB, let's call it, to people all over the nation. They'll say, well, in Massachusetts, there's a good candidate for Congress or for the state legislature, and they will ask for contributions in that person's name. So there is already something in play, but whether it's, you know, at the local level, that remains to be seen. Louise? You?
No. Yes, I have a question for both candidates. Joe Fitzgerald from Ward 2. Would either you commit to a term of time? I know the last few chairmen, they didn't stay very long. Now, how do each of you feel?
It's a 2-year term.
Right.
And I think it's going to take 3 to 5 years to turn the party around. So I would hope to, within the first 2 years, get it set on that path to make that turnaround. And if I'm reelected, then I'll continue it on that path.
My answer is the same. It's a 2-year term, so basically it's up to the state committee. If we're doing a good job, then the chair is reelected. If not, then no. We have so much work to do. It definitely will take more than 2 years.